So Hare Krishna. Wonderful to be here leading up to the Hare Krishna devotees' Christmas. Gaura Purnima is our Christmas, is our everything. Just talk amongst yourselves for a little while, okay? Or talk to God. So my dear devotees, we are gathered here today in the sight of God to explore the subject of staying faithful to the parampara, isn't it? That was the subject? The subject you gave me? Yes, okay, good. Staying faithful to the parampara. Parampara is the transport system. It's the delivery vehicle that brings you the cake for your birthday. Okay, most important cake of your year. That's the birthday cake, isn't it? So the vehicle that brings you your cake is the parampara. That's got wheels. It moves. And it moves in time and space to bring you the cake. Sampradaya is when you cut the cake and you eat the cake. You understand? Sampradaya is it's the slice of the parampara as it is right now available for you. If the parampara, if the cake in the van drives right past number 52, where you live, okay, and it carries on driving, that's no use to you. That's parampara, but it has no relevance to you. Parampara only has relevance when you join the sampradaya. When you say, "Stop, van. Driver, I do believe you have a cake for me." That is, so that exertion allows you to use the parampara as a vehicle for you to experience the sampradaya. Parampara means one after the other. So as a vehicle travels one after the mile, 1 mile after another mile after another mile, so the parampara goes one generation after another generation after another generation, guru to disciple, master to student, teacher to pupil, on down through the generations. And what you experience from a particular slice is where we slice through history to get the parampara. Inside the parampara, you'll find sampradaya. Understand? So we're concerned with two things. Devotees used to get the two words mixed up. We don't get those two words mixed up anymore, do we? Not from today, we won't. When you get initiated, are you in the parampara? Huh? You are, aren't you? Are you in the sampradaya? Yes, you are. You're in both. But you're in the parampara with relevance if you pass on the teachings to someone else. That means you become part of history unfolding itself. And a teacher, a guru, an acharya, does this in a multitude of ways, because he, sometimes she, in the case of Janava Mata, Janava, the wife of Lord Nityananda, she became the head of the disciplic succession after the disappearance of Chaitanya and Nityananda. Why? Because her role was absolutely crucial. Because one thing that religious organizations like to do, because they're embodied by human beings, and one thing that human beings like to do is they like to have different points of view. Now, it's all right having different points of view. It's what you do with your different point of view that is important. To have the parampara continue a message on into the next century, we have to have people that agree, perhaps to disagree, but they agree on something that will be taught in all the schools of that sampradaya. And this is sometimes, what a business strategist would call getting to yes. It means getting to a place where we can all agree. One time, practically speaking, everybody in this room is within their own universe of Krishna consciousness, isn't it? We've all joined a different ISKCON. Practically speaking, we're just agreeing to share space. The only two things we agree upon is the solid position of Srila Prabhupada and the solid position of Krishna. And the third thing is the holy name of Krishna. but everything apart from that. Isn't it, Vishwambhara? Everybody's got a different idea of reality. And so that's when we start looking at the teachings, and you find whether my vision of reality is actually tattva or whether it's just my speculation. So how do we do that? Then we have to go to the Acharya. So that's why he leaves behind him a solid body of writings. But an Acharya is a person who intervenes in human history. That's what Guru means. It means that he's present in time and space. Someone has to be driving that van. There does actually have to be a cake inside the van. They actually have to stop outside your house for you to take delivery of that most important rasa, that experience that you'll get by having your birthday cake, celebrating the real reason why you came into this world on your birthday. And so how does that happen? Well, we find, of course, in our Shastra, that the Guru is manifest in two ways. One is the Chaitya Guru within the heart, intangible, invisible, inaudible, inexperienceable, except on the subtlest of levels. And then that super soul is manifest on the outside as the flesh and blood Guru. Now, some people like to say, oh, there's no such thing as a flesh and blood Guru. A Guru is spiritual. There was perhaps you've heard the name of Richard Attenborough. He's a film director. And he made a famous film about Mahatma Gandhi back in the, long time ago. And when he went to India, as a director, he wanted to make sure that he didn't offend anybody because Gandhi is the father of the nation, and etc. And so he had a lot of people coming to him and saying, well, you can't really make a film about Gandhi because he was spiritual. And one man said to him, supported by a group of people who came to him and said, actually, Mr. Attenborough, when you make the film about Gandhi, perhaps Gandhi could not be portrayed by an actor. Perhaps Gandhi could be portrayed by a beam of light. And they were very serious. And he said, I'm making a film about a historical person, not bloody Tinkerbell. He had to get it over to them that whatever you think of a person, that person has entered history. And that's important to understand. And part of what Prabhupada was trying to do with all of us was to come into our history in the 1960s and 70s and say, here is, embodied by this person, here are the teachings. But you don't get the Guru without the embodiment of the teachings, because that is the Guru. That's the very definition of the Guru. So there's a physical aspect to it. There's a physical aspect to book production. For instance, we have these wonderful books that Prabhupada distributed. This is where Vishwambhara becomes alive. Book distribution is such an important thing. But if I was to say to you, no, you've got it wrong. Prabhupada's message is not in ink on paper. How can you reduce Prabhupada's message to just ink on paper with some wrapped in some cardboard? How can you reduce Prabhupada's message to just selling books on the street, something so mundane as selling? It's spiritual. You have to treat Prabhupada's books very, very wonderfully. And so in some religions, they take the scripture, put it on the altar, fan it with a chamara, bring it out on special occasions, keep it locked away, but there's no distribution. Our tradition is different. We take the holiest of all holy things and we make it available in the marketplace. One time a girl came to Prabhupada and she said, Prabhupada, we're selling books, but sometimes the holy scriptures, they're throwing them away in the rubbish bin. What should we do? And Prabhupada said they're throwing their own embryos into the rubbish bin. He said, this is the culture in which you are selling my books. They're throwing their own embryos into rubbish bins. So many thousands and thousands of babies are killed within their mother's wombs, the place where they should be most safe. He said, so if a few books are thrown away, take it as a reflection of the civilization that you're actually dealing with. And so the holiest of holy is not spirituality as some vague, impersonal force, but the holiest of holy is where it takes shape and comes into this world as grace. because we live off grace. We are creatures of grace. Without grace, without prasad, we are nothing. It's like the Titanic. There's another ship. The Titanic's going down. You're in the water, icy water. Can you imagine 30 degrees colder than it is now outside? And you're in the water and you're dying, okay? And someone comes by on a ship and says through the microphone, he says through the loud hole, he says, I have all genuine human sympathy for your circumstances. I just want you to know that my feelings are very strong for you right now. I just want you to know that if I had the... What a situation. Well, that's spiritual, isn't it? He felt it on the inside. But nothing was happening on the outside. Nothing was happening on the outside. And so ISKCON is spirituality made flesh, made print, made bricks and mortar, made acres. When Prabhupada talked about farming, he talked a lot about farming. And of course he was hopeful that we would do something here and buy more and more land and become a huge farm. So one devotee on a morning walk in Lechmore Heath came to him and said, Prabhupada, can we have, we want to advertise your desire to do farming, and we want to have a logo. In those days you didn't have a website, there was no such thing as computers. No one had even dreamed, except in spiritual sky there was one computer that chanted Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, he said, first of all, do it. He said, no, Prabhupada, I was thinking we could have a logo, and like you said, it could have the sickle, like the communist, so you'd have the sickle with a tilak through it instead of the hammer, to show Vaishnavism and farming. And Prabhupada said, first of all, do it. Well, Prabhupada, I was thinking if we had a logo, then we could get the ideas out, and he said, first of all, do it. So 3 times he said, first of all, do it. Don't talk about it, don't make a logo. And if Prabhupada was here today, I'm sure he would say, don't make a website, just do it. The original Nike, just do it. And so therefore, Prabhupada pushed and he pushed and he pushed. Practically speaking, I don't know how disciples didn't break. It must have been a spiritual thing between guru and disciple, because he said, practically I am whipping you. Sell books, sell books, sell books. Because Prabhupada knew that his time was quite short, and in that quite short time he had to establish something that would be an unbreakable force for the future. So how do you do that? Well, you do it by establishing your teachings, first of all, in the books and in the hearts of followers. Then you create a system where all the followers live together so that they can actually help each other. We know how difficult it is. Those of us who are householders, those of us who are listening from home, you know how difficult it is when you're not living in community. There was a time when everybody lived in community, and the devotees of Krishna. To be a devotee of Krishna and to follow A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada meant to live in community with others, because that would make for strength. You see, communal living makes for strength, whereas disparate living makes for individual occupation, but it doesn't always lead to people joining together for spiritual activities. It's enough of a struggle just living, just keeping warm, just paying the bills. So what to speak of spiritual practices? But if everybody's got the same fire, if everybody's got the same kitchen, if everybody's got the same sleeping arrangements, everybody gets up at the same time, then this helps with spiritual life. Then the next thing the Guru does is Virodhi. He teaches you about Virodhi, the obstacles on the path of pure devotional service. If the Guru teaches you about pure devotional service but doesn't teach you about the obstacles, then that is a problem. So then the Guru builds the organization. Organization just means not something dull and dry like a religious institution that has lost its dynamism, but organization means that which has organs. It's like you sitting there listening to me, probably getting a little bored by now because you're wondering when I'm going to start talking about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You have organs. You have a liver, each one of you, although I can't see it. You have a liver, spleen, 2 kidneys, 1 heart, 2 lungs, and all the various bits and pieces that make you up as one package, one body. So all those organs have to do what the specific organs have to do. And we know, Prabhupada's example from 1966, if the organs were not in agreement with each other. So he told the story, he said, one day, Hare Krishna, one day the fingers all came together and they had a discussion. We have seen that all we do is we take the cake, and without eating the cake, we transfer the cake to the mouth. And the mouth and the stomach, they're always eating cake, and we don't get any cake at all. See? So the fingers went on strike. And then Prabhupada asked the question, and then what happened? Then what happened when the fingers went on strike? He said, then the mouth did not have any cake, the stomach did not have any cake, and the man was hungry, and he grew weaker and weaker and weaker. That means when one vital element does not contribute to the whole, because the digestion is distributing to the whole, but when one element doesn't contribute, then the whole enterprise becomes weak. So the kidneys must do their function. The lungs must do their function, right? The heart must do its function. Any one of those can fail the entire system. But the heart can't think, I wish I was a set of lungs. I'm only one. I wish I was 2. And the kidneys can't think, I wish we could get together somewhere around the spine area. Everything is set in a proper place. So when you have a human organization, it's functional only when everybody plays their part. When the marketing department and the advertising department work together, when the budgetary control is in place, when the manufacturing base is right, when the distribution is right, then you have an organization that's providing a manufactured goods or some services. Then you have all the elements in place. So Prabhupada conceived of ISKCON as being many different parts, and what was his message? Working cooperatively. Working cooperatively. And through the movement and the buildings are very important. Don't think that they're not important in a spiritual movement. Usually when we like something, or when we dislike something that ISKCON does, either its system or its structure, what do we say? We say, it's an institution. Well, it never used to be an institution, now it's an institution. And when we like something that ISKCON does, we say, so I'm so happy to be part of a wonderful spiritual movement. So movement good, institution bad, right? No. Actually, Prabhupada used 3 words to describe ISKCON. 4. Society, movement, cult, and institution. And organization. Here goes 5 words. They all mean different things. The idea here is if you like it, you'll think it's wonderful. If you don't like it, you'll immediately thinking of separating. Immediately thinking of leaving. Okay. Put your hand up if you've never thought of leaving ISKCON. Oh, look at you. Go to the top of the class. Firstly, what does it mean? What does it mean? Someone said to me, now you've got married. So he said, so you won't be living in the temple. So now that you've left ISKCON, you can... ISKCON is very big. So it has many functioning parts. And the reason I'm saying this is to take what happened between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Vallabhacharya as a template of what often happens with ourselves, you see. We join groups because they serve our needs. If you have a need inside you, you join a group. When that group no longer serves your needs, or no longer sees as if it looks as if it can serve your needs, then you leave that group. And that's why people are always joining things and leaving things. Joining a relationship, leaving a relationship. Joining a marriage, leaving a marriage. Joining a company, leaving a company. It's a very different world that we live in now You used to join a company, and it used to be like Samsung or Sony or Toyota here in this country. You join a company, and when you left the company, the day you left the company was 40 years later, and you got a clock, and you got some celebrations. Okay, isn't it Radha Sangha? Your father left Ford at Dagenham. You got a clock, right? After how many years? It was just eternal, wasn't it? Just ever. These days, you're very lucky to get a 6-month contract, isn't it? And am I right? There's also 3-month contracts. Okay? And now we have something called 0 hours contract. Okay? Because I don't know you, you don't know me, I don't trust you, you don't trust me. You may work, you may not work. I don't know what sort of character you are. Because everybody lies at the interview, they lie on their CV, because we all want people to think that we're wonderful. So the idea when you become initiated is that's for life. But even now that's challenged. 2 years later, someone who's initiated thinks, well, I wasn't quite sure, but I got initiated because someone told me, and I'm not really sure. I really would have liked to have got initiated by him, but he was in Fiji at the time, and he never came through London, but now he's coming through London. Well, I can see he's just the person maybe I could take him as a Shiksha Guru. Oh no, I asked my Diksha Guru yesterday if I could take him as a Shiksha Guru. He said, why are you so dissatisfied? And now I'm even more convinced that my Diksha Guru is not really my... So this is Kali Yuga, folks. Restless. Everybody restless. Everybody in the mode of passion. And what happens is that Raja Guna stimulates passionate joining and passionate leaving. So we make a very great commitment quickly, and then we leave quickly without very much thought. Because the center of the universe is me, not the institution. So I'm damned if I'm going to serve the institution by staying there for years. I'll start my own institution. So now we have counted around the world that ISKCON, the one ISKCON, now has 327 splinter groups. That's people. Oh yes, Govinda, don't look at me like that. 327 splinter groups. As people who thought, they're not doing it the right way, I can do it better. You see? Oh, no, you're looking at me, you're thinking, oh, I've never had a thought like that. Sutapa. Okay. Vishrambar, you never had a thought like that? They're doing it like this. They should be doing it like this. I could do it better. Isn't it? We've all had those thoughts. So I could do it better. I am a devotee. I could do it better. I know better. Let me explain it to the others. And this was the thought of Vallabhacharya. Now, we have to be very careful, because we have many, many followers of Vallabhacharya and Pushti Marga in our community. And after Vallabhacharya met with Lord Chaitanya and he was corrected by Lord Chaitanya, he went on to correct his commentary, we hear, and it was accepted. But what happened was that Prabhupada wrote about this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, delivered in 1975. Devotees took it, and devotees like controversial things. See, the whole point here, folks, is that there was a parampara with the Sikhs, the Sikh gurus. And then we get to the 10th guru, and there were 22 competitive challengers for the title of Sikh guru. So eventually Guru Gobind Singh, he said, okay, no more gurus. No more gurus. The only guru now is the book. And we've almost had a sort of mini Sikh rebellion within ISKCON. Okay, the gurus have failed, there's so many of them. The only thing now we can trust is Prabhupada's books. At Prabhupada's books, just put the books up there and worship the books, and there we go. ISKCON becomes Sikhism. Or ISKCON becomes Christianity. After Prabhupada, basically there are no more gurus. Prabhupada is the one guru who has come. He's the one guru who has come, and Prabhupada will save you. So let's bypass all the mechanics of parampara to superimpose Christianity or Sikhism on top of the Vaishnava parampara. It's how it happens, and it happens in a couple of generations. It tried to happen in this generation, and the Prabhupada disciples stood very firm. God knows what will happen in the next generation. It will be you dealing with it, Sutapa, not me. So let's hear a little bit about what happened and how Prabhupada dealt with it. So one thing we do notice from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his teachings to Sanatan and Rupa Goswami is that in the 10 days, how long did they have? 10 days. One had 10 days, the other had... One had 10 months, 2 months, and then they had 10 months later in Jagannath Puri. And I've just been making a study of that because I thought, well, what is Lord Chaitanya's teachings? And of course we all know Lord Chaitanya's teachings, but in what order and how did he teach? Because I was thinking that at the very least that I can do for people in my life is to perfectly duplicate what was taught in that transaction, because that's what Prabhupada was teaching. So they both to Rupa and Sanatan, they both start with the soul, but with Rupa we find everything culminates in the rasa tattva, and with Sanatan we find it's more analytical, a little more logical, philosophical. And we hear about Krishna's incarnations and expansions, and we hear about the beauty and sweetness of Krishna and the devotee's relationship with Krishna. And we hear about regulated devotional service, the principles of devotional service, and then Raganuga Bhakti. So we sort of culminate in the same thing. But it's interesting to note that they went away and they wrote completely different books. Completely different books. So, with Sanatan you get different things. You get the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which talks about the hierarchy of destinations within the universe. You get Hari Bhakti Vilas. You get this. Sort of analytical, based on Pancharatra, the expansions and incarnations of Krishna. So it's slightly more technical. Well, not slightly more technical, but approaching the same subject in a different way. And so this was their faithful dissemination of the teachings that they heard at their master's feet. Now, when Lord Chaitanya he's there with Vallabhacharya. There's a different interaction actually. First of all, let's read it. Let's read it. We have. I'm just going to read it briefly. So, where are we? Excuse me. It's very interesting because I want to make time for what came afterwards. Because you know that Sumati Morarji, who paid for Prabhupada to come to America, later on the devotees took this rather controversial episode and turned it into a Back to Godhead magazine article, which of course reached her doorstep because she was a life member. And I suppose her attitude was, I gave you your ticket for America, and now your disciples are criticizing my Acharya? Well, what's happening? So in 1976, on the 9th of August, Prabhupada had to write a letter basically pacifying her. So, so all the devotees of Bengal went to visit Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the Lord met them all. Then a learned scholar named Vallabha Bhatta went to Jagannath Puri to meet the Lord. When he arrived, he offered his obeisances, accepting him as a great devotee. The Lord embraced him. Then Vallabha Bhatta began to speak. He said very nice things. He praised him. One is very fortunate. You are fortunate. You have been empowered by Lord Krishna. You have manifested the holy name throughout the world. And he goes on and he says, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sort of knew what's coming because he's a super soul. He knew what's coming. So he says, when someone praises you a lot, watch out, because they're about to say something where they either want your money When Vishwambara praises you on the street, that's the only lines I ever learned from Prabhupada. One person asked Prabhupada, what do we say to people on the street? And Prabhupada told us upstairs, he said, this is what you say when you're selling a book. He said, oh, my dear sir. He said, you're so intelligent. Please take this book. Anyway, so he says, listen to me. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, I'm a sannyasi of the Mayavad school. Therefore, I have no chance of knowing what Krishna Bhakti is. But I've become purified because I've associated with Advaita Acharya, who is directly the Supreme Person. So then, what happens here is numerous texts where Lord Chaitanya praises every devotee that he has ever had contact with. He says, the only thing I know, I learned from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. The only thing I know about relationship with Krishna is what I learned from Ramananda Roy. The only grace I have is because I've been with Advaita Acharya and Swarup Damodar. So he goes through all these, he goes through all his devotee friends because he's trying to, even before Vallabha Bhatta has spoken, he's teaching him that we are recipients of mercy from those who are in the parampara before us. Everything we have and everything we know and everything we can experience comes from the devotees who've gone before us. So then he goes on, and so then he lists them all: Acharya Ratna, Acharya Nidhi, Gadadhar Pandit, Jagadananda, Damodar, Shankara, Vakreshwara, Kashishwara, Mukunda, Vasudev Murari, and many other devotees have descended in Bengal to preach to everyone the glories of the holy name of Krishna and the value of love for him. I have learned from them the meaning of devotional service to Krishna. And so the next part here, after declaring that anything he knows from them, he says, Krishnadas Kaviraj says, knowing that Vallabha Bhatta's heart was full of pride, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke these words, hinting at how one can learn about devotional service. So then Vallabha asks him, where do all these devotees live? And then he invites them. And then he serves them very nicely. So you would think, okay, we're done here. This is the end of the Leela. His heart had some pride, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chastened that pride by insisting on the principle of learning from the devotees that have gone before you. So then he worships those devotees, and you would think after worshipping devotees you get the grace, and that's an expression of humility, and you acquire humility by Vaishnava Seva, so we're done and dusted. Right? That's what you would think. So then he sees Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Rath Yatra festival, and he sees all these devotees chanting and dancing in pure love of God, with the 14 mridangas and the dancers and everything. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to dance. Vallabha Bhatta thought, here is Lord Krishna, without a doubt. So he's making all the expressions that a pure follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come to, pure conclusions. So what's the problem? And then he says, then he comes and he says, one day after the festival, he says, Bhagavatera Tika. Bhagavatera Tika. Tika means commentary, Bhagavat on the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatera Tika Kichu Karyachi Likan Apani Mahaprabhu Yadi Karena Shravan. I have written some commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, he said. Would your lordship kindly hear it? Now, for us in ISKCON, we sort of live and die with Prabhupada's commentaries, don't we? Practically speaking, we only give a tipani on Prabhupada's tika, but we don't even write it down. In the old days, we wouldn't even record it. That's why there's no recordings of any devotees giving Bhagavatam class before. Maybe Vishnu Jan Swami had one, maybe Tamal Krishna Maharaj had one, but really nobody would record anybody's classes. Why? Because who do you think you are? Prabhupada's classes are recorded. What do you think you're doing recording your own voice? Who do you think you are? Prabhupada? And what to speak of, recording your kirtan? What to speak of having a website? How audacious, how proud. You see, what to speak of, writing your own books, Sutapa, Kripamoya. What to speak of that? Who the hell do you think you are when Prabhupada has written so many books? How can you possibly write a book? But under the Guru's order, you can do these things. So Prabhupada said, and it's a quote that we don't often hear, and because there was such a great insistence to sell Prabhupada's books and listen to Prabhupada's recordings, we kind of forgot that principle. And therefore, Bhakti Godhead magazine, it folded for a year. Prabhupada had started it in 1944, continued it through the years, up to the 50s, brought it in the 60s, started it again. But it folded because we just couldn't get devotees interested in it. At one time, we sold 1 million copies a month. And the whole point of Back to Godhead magazine was it was a lead magazine. It was the first entry to Krishna consciousness because it was written by the followers of Prabhupada, because that's the way he wanted it. He said, you write in your own language for your own countrymen. He said, take my words and write. So this was an important principle which we don't often hear because we are insistent, if we're not caught up on book changes or changing Prabhupada's words or legacy issues or not allowing Prabhupada's contribution to fade into history, there's a high level of conservatism. So what happens is that creativity sometimes suffers under that, and we have to find another organization to join. So there are other organizations where people are a bit more creative in their writing or creative in making music. Thankfully, we've been able to pull it back from the brink, but we went through a period in the middle of the 80s when, who do you think you are? We're desperately trying to keep this movement together for Prabhupada. Writing your own book? Get out. It's a little bit like that. Recording your own voice, broadcasting your own voice. Who do you think you are? And so, but Prabhupada, when George Harrison came here, right here, he came upstairs and he said, Prabhupada, I've been thinking of joining the ashram. I think cutting my hair, moving into the ashram, doing all that, so I can be like all of you guys. And Prabhupada said, no, you're a musician. You are a musician. You write songs about Krishna, but I will give you the ideas. I will give you the ideas. So that's how we have George Harrison's songs that went into the world that perhaps we listened to and we heard about. And if you don't know George Harrison, that's fine. He's also in history. But Prabhupada wanted creative people. For every great sage, there is a musician. For every great sage, there's a person who puts on plays. For every great scriptwriter, there's a person who stages the play, a director and a producer. So you need all of that. Someone has a great idea, but they don't have what it takes to turn the idea into a reality. So we need different types of people. So Prabhupada harnessed the energies of those different types of people, didn't get them to immediately give up what they were doing. And so you're this, okay, you do this, but you do it for a higher purpose. So there is a great tradition of writing commentaries. There's a great tradition of writing commentaries. However, if you wish your commentary to be taken seriously, it should be a commentary on a commentary on a commentary of a commentary, of a bhashya. A bhashya is the original commentary. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, immediately he sees Vallabha Bhatta coming and he says, I've written a commentary, but then he qualifies by saying the following. He says, the Lord replied, I do not understand the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam. Indeed, I am not a suitable person to hear its meaning. I simply sit and try to chant the holy name of Krishna. and although I chant all day and night, I nevertheless cannot complete the chanting of my prescribed number of rounds. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking. So then Vallabha Bhatta said, and he gets excited here, he says, I have tried to describe elaborately the meaning of Krishna's holy name. Kindly hear the explanation. What do you think Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said? Vallabha Bhatta said, I'll describe the meaning of, he says, I do not accept many different meanings for the holy name of Krishna. I know only that Lord Krishna is Shamsundar and Yashodanandan. That's all I know. The only purport of the holy name is that Krishna is that he is dark blue like a tamal tree, and he is the son of Mother Yashoda. This is the conclusion of all the revealed scriptures. This is from the Nama Kaumudi. I conclusively know these two names, Shyamasundar and Yashodanandana. I don't understand any other meanings, nor have I the capacity to understand them. It's almost what we would call today, talk to the hand. talk to the, I don't understand these things. So he's not challenging him. There's friendly relations. He said, but, I'm sorry, I can't understand these things. But then Krishnadas Kaviraj writes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is omniscient. Therefore he could understand that Vallabha Bhatta's explanations of Krishna's name and Srimad Bhagavatam were useless. Therefore he did not care about them. Here's the controversial point. Because we don't normally name names. Even though it's 500 years ago, we don't normally name names. But here in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it happened. What happened? This is for the education of everyone. Vallabha Bhatta went home feeling morose. His faith and devotion to the Lord changed. In other words, as long as he was flattering Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu flattered him, everything was great. But when he flattered Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he didn't receive anything in return, in fact he received a sort of I'm sorry, let's not discuss this, I don't understand your explanations. He went home morose. Suddenly the relationship, which was actually based on, I appreciated you, I came here and told you that basically you're an empowered incarnation of Krishna. At least you could say nice things about my commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam. But what happens here is that he goes home morose because there's no reciprocation. So what does he do? He goes to the home of Gadadhar Pandit. And Gadadhar Pandit, it sort of says, well, the Lord doesn't listen to him, but at least I have to do, he's feeling upset. So isn't it often like that? You may not agree with the person, but because they're feeling emotionally upset and they come to take shelter of you, you have to sort of extend yourself to them. But then what happened is Gadadhar Pandit began to be mildly criticized by the Vaishnavas for showing some consideration for someone that Lord Chaitanya had rejected. Because here it says he felt ashamed, insulted, and unhappy. He says, and he comes to Gadadhar and he says, I've taken shelter of you, my dear sir. Kindly be merciful to me and save my life. Please, you hear my explanation of the name of Krishna. In that way, the mud of the shame that has come upon me will be washed off. So poor Gadadhar Pandit, he's in a position. What does he do? Well, he has to listen, doesn't he? He was in a dilemma. But anyway, it says that although he didn't want to hear it, Vallabha Bhatta began to read it with great force. No, I'll only be a minute. Listen, sit down. Because Vallabha Bhatta was a learned Brahmin. This is the point. He had some stature. And he began to think of Lord Krishna because he didn't want someone that had been palmed off by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give him his thing. So then Vallabha Bhatta makes a second mistake. Well, a third mistake, actually. He says to Advaita Acharya, every living entity is female, or prakriti, and considers Krishna her husband, or pati. It is the duty of a chaste wife devoted to her husband not to utter her husband's name. But all of you chant the name of Krishna. How can this be called a religious principle? There's a long-standing culture in India that if you speak the name of the husband, you decrease the husband's duration of life. And even today, in some parts of South India, if a woman has to appear in court and her husband is in court, she will not say his name. The judge may say his name, the witnesses may say his name, but the wife, she won't say his name. She'll say either my husband or the father of my daughter. It'll be circumlocucious because she doesn't want to say his name. So in this way, the wife doesn't say the name of the husband, but like that. So then he says, how can you chant, if you're Prakriti and you're the wife of Krishna, how can you chant the name of Krishna? Direct name of Krishna. And there are still some people who are preaching to vast audiences that criticize the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and specifically ISKCON, because we're the highly visible part of the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for doing Harinam Sankirtan. This is not something you should take into a public place. This is something private. Why are you singing in public? You know? This is, if it's your highest mantra, your second highest mantra, you give in silence, right? And we're very, very particular about that. We get very irritated when people sing the Gayatri mantra, for instance, as a kirtan, as some of the New Age people do. We don't like that. And so that's our second highest mantra, okay? Our body of mantras. So why is it when you take your highest mantra, you give it away in the marketplace? And someone came to me and he said, I saw you on television. I said, well, you saw me on television? He said, yes, I saw you singing along with that known homosexual, Boy George. Bow down, Mr. Hari Rama, Hari Krishna. He said, you've taken the holy name of Krishna and you've degraded it by singing it with people of ill repute in the marketplace. I said, oh, okay. So the point here is that we're not tarnishing the holy name. We're distributing the holy name. And this is the Yuga Dharma. That's the difference. But here he's saying, why are you chanting something which should be respected? So then Advaita Acharya says, in front of you is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the personification of religious principles. You should ask him, for he will give you the proper answer. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, the first duty of a chaste woman is to carry out the order of her husband, and the order of Krishna is to chant his name incessantly. Therefore, one is chaste to Krishna must chant the Lord's name. And then he goes home speechless. So the next day, he said his fourth mistake, unfortunately. He says, Bhagavate Swamira Vyakyan Kairachi Kandan Laite na Paritanra Vyakyan Vachan. Give me 2 minutes and I'll finish here. In my commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, he said, dun, 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 I have refuted the explanation of Sridhar Swami. I cannot accept his explanation. Wow. Putting his foot in it there, didn't he? See, whatever Sridhar Swami reads, he explains according to the circumstances. Therefore, he is inconsistent in his explanations and cannot be accepted as an authority. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smilingly replied, and this is where he gives a cutting remark. He says, one who does not accept the Swami, husband, as an authority, I consider a prostitute. Okay. Vesha Bitare. So all the devotees were very grave. No one spoke. It's one of those moments, you know, when the leading figure says something and you could hear a pin drop. Okay. So he corrected Vallabha Bhatta. He says, exactly as Krishna cut down the false pride of Indra. And returning home, Vallabha Bhatta thought, previously at Prayag, Lord Chaitanya was very kind to me. He accepted my invitation with his other devotees, and he was kind to me. Why is he now changed so much here at Jagannath Puri? Being very proud of my learning, I'm thinking, let me become victorious. So he becomes immediately regretful. I'm a great fool, and indeed I have acted like a fool by trying to demonstrate to you my learning. So he apologizes, and then he goes away and corrects his commentary. The whole point is that our commentaries are all commentaries on commentaries on commentaries. In 1947, there was a young boy went chasing a goat, and he went into a cave in a place called Qumran, and he found some ancient scrolls called the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the Dead Sea Scrolls shocked the world because some of the stories that Jesus Christ told were in those scrolls, which are a few hundred years before Jesus Christ. So the church was very, if Jesus is the Son of God, then he's got to have his own material. He's got to have his own script. But in our tradition, we say quite the opposite. The parampara is only preserved intact if you repeat, 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 repeat. And your commentaries are commentaries on commentaries of commentaries of commentaries. You see, this is the point. Now you may write another commentary, for instance, as Baladev Vidyabhushana did, in order to challenge something. The Swami Narayans have just written another commentary. Just in October they released it. The idea being that they needed a commentary on Vedanta Sutra because of some difficulties with the parampara. Someone had a dream, Ramananda had a dream, and who said that Ramanujacharya had come into a dream, and then he, etc. So there was a huge following. But then in 1911, the followers of Ramanujacharya eventually, it was all happening in North India. They were in South India. But they turned around and they said, actually, the followers of Ramananda, the Ramanandis, we have to say that their philosophy is so different from Ramanujacharya that they are no longer part of our parampara. So this was in 1911. So it took from 1911 to 2017 to come up with the commentary. But you have to have a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. That's how the discourse goes in Sanskrit. Then you're accepted. We have one devotee. It's very interesting. People are very, very concerned about what we're doing. So there's a department in the Vatican, for instance, in Rome, where one gentleman has been reading all of Prabhupada's books, all the original works, and especially getting into the Chaitanya Charitamrita in the Vatican. Why? Because they're taking it seriously. Because in order to defeat you, we have to read your books. So the Vatican has a full set of Prabhupada's books, which they're reading very scrupulously. And in the next few years, you will have a new generation of Christian theologians that will be able to speak Sanskrit to you, and you better be prepared. And the same is happening in India. We're reading Prabhupada's books, and we have one Sanskrit scholar now who has taken Prabhupada's English purports and has been, the Bhagavad Gita now, has been translated back into Sanskrit. So taking Prabhupada's English purports, translating them back into Sanskrit in order to have a commentary on Bhagavad Gita from the Acharya who distributed Krishna all through the world. Just that Prabhupada's position is very, very, very solid. So these are the things that are going on. And it will outlive us. But just as Vallabha Bhatta was corrected, we also have to take people along with us. And I won't read it now because the time is going on. But in this book, Prabhupada has a letter in which he writes to Sumati Morarji. Would you like to hear what he says? Because he tries to, put her back together again. Because she sent him on his way. And he says, this is the modern day, so 500 years later, something happens. We take this very seriously. There's disputes that go on between our group and other groups. And the origin of that dispute happened 500 years ago or 450 years ago. Strange, isn't it? Almost like the Irish. So he says, Madam Sumati Morarji, I'm sorry to learn that you've become a little agitated regarding the publication of an article in our Back to Godhead magazine. It is certainly unpleasant. But the officers who publish the magazine do not know Satyam Bruyat, Priyam Bruyat. In this material world, only palatable truth should be spoken. Okay? So Prabhupada said, You should only speak palatable truth. Okay? If it offends someone, if it upsets someone in another sampradaya, you shouldn't say it. Or did he? Let's read what he says. He says, unpalatable truth should be carefully avoided. Okay? The cause of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's agitation was much the same as your own. As you are irritated by the criticism of Sri Vallabhacharya, similarly Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also agitated when Vallabhacharya criticized Sridhar Swami. Sridhar Swami is accepted as the original commentator on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Perhaps you know that there is an edition of the Srimad Bhagavatam by Krishna Shankar Shastri, Abhinav Shuka, Vedantacharya, Sahitya Tirtha, Sri Bhagavat Sudhanidhi from Ahmedabad. So Prabhupada's mentioning a particular book. Why is he mentioning a particular book that's not his book? In that book, he has given almost all the important commentaries on the Bhagavatam as follows. Number 1, Sridhar Swami. Now Sridhar Swami was in the 1300s. 1300s? 1300s or 13th century. Number 2, Vamsidhara. 3, Sri Gangashaya. 4, Srimad Viragavacharya. 5, Srimad Vijayadvaj Tirtha. 6, Srimad Jiva Goswami. 7, Srimad Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. 8, Srimad Shukadev. 9, Goswami Sri Giridhar Lal Vallabhacharya Sampradaya. Number 10, Sri Bhagavat Prasad Acharya, etc. So among all commentaries, Sridhar Swami's is given the first position. This parampara has existed for a very long time. It was also accepted during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, but Vallabhacharya violated the system. Instead of acknowledging Sridhar Swami's preeminent position, he wanted to take it himself. This is the thing. If my commentary is an original commentary, then it becomes a bhashya, not a tika or a tipani. It's an original commentary. And therefore you're placing yourself as the founder acharya. So, I'm enclosing here with some photocopies of the important verses from the original book, Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so he photocopies because what we've just read, he photocopies those sheets. He said, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remarked sarcastically that he considered anyone who didn't accept the Swami as an authority was a prostitute. Prabhu hasi kahe. Prabhu hasi kahe. Hasi. He smiled. He said, but he smiled and said this jokingly because they were friends. So here we have the resolution. It's important to understand. Although this point is very controversial, it is not based on hearsay, as stated, but it is authoritatively documented. As you have written to me in a friendly spirit, I do not wish to discuss this point further. If you kindly take a little trouble to read this chapter, you will understand the whole situation. But even authorities like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mention in their commentaries Swami Charanat, as we have learned it from the lotus feet of Sridhar Swami. But this does not mean that Vallabha Bhatta and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were inimical. Vallabha honored Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a superior. Sometimes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would chastise Vallabha Bhatta, and sometimes he'd favor him because of their relationship. So I hope you will understand the whole situation. I hope this meets you well. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. So, my dear Vaishnavas, any points? No, we've gone on too long. Yeah. Yes, Prabhupada has, how many commentaries? 4. 4 commentaries open on his desk at the same time. Or there's one book that provides Bhagavatam, 4 commentaries on the Bhagavatam in one book. So he's taking from that, and then he's making it very relevant to his own situation. Therefore, you'll find in Prabhupada's commentary, you'll find topical issues as well, like who attacked who. China attacked India or something, and Prabhupada writes about it. Something in Pakistan or something. He writes about, Prabhupada's commentaries, he writes about Mr. Nixon, the president, or something like that. So he's running through topical commentaries. And this is relevant because it has to be rooted in time and space. For the parampara to be relevant, we have to cut through, and it has to be accessible right here and now. And the difficulty always is balancing the necessities of the day, the right here and now accessibility, with the immutable truth that has been given to us as a legacy. So is it Krishna West, so everybody feels comfortable? Is it Krishna East, so we preserve the legacy? How do we balance that? How do we get the balance? Because everything bifurcates. In religious organizations, it always bifurcates. The mode of passion always runs. The big disagreement comes, the Eastern Church, the Western Church, the Orthodox Church, the Roman Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, Protestant Church, the Protestant Church, Methodism, Salvation Army. Okay, so Jesus Christ was on a hill and he spoke the original message, and now if you look at the Christian yearbook, which I do sometimes, there are 47,000 different organizations, and each one of them has got the one and only true message of Jesus Christ. Now, that's in 2,000 years. So far, 50 years. And we've got many different organizations now. A lot of those organizations, just one person. But we have quite a few out there. We've got, we won't mention their names, but they're there. They're doing their own thing. Are they spreading the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Yes, they are, to a greater or lesser extent. Do they think they've got it right and ISKCON's got it wrong? Yes, they do, to a greater or lesser extent. Have we got it right? To a greater or lesser extent, yes. Where we fail, it will immediately be evident. Immediately be evident. You cannot go on too long if you're getting something wrong without becoming dejected, morose, unhappy like Vallabha. And spiritual life then becomes painful. So it is evident by how it manifests. So we always have to be on the lookout for where vitality is. That's where people usually are doing it right. And where vitality seems to be diminishing, that's where people are doing it wrong. Okay. But better than starting another organization to do it right is to change the organization that you've got. So the system, the structure, the vitality is all improved. You see. Otherwise it's like the rebel fingers not feeding the stomach, because then everybody fails. So it has to be strong. Ramanujacharya was very strong. He revitalized that parampara by doing exactly what Prabhupada did. This is the interesting thing. Although his birth was 1,000 years ago, you read what Ramanujacharya did, and sometimes we just think, oh yeah, he was a sannyasi and he wrote something, taught something, inspired some people. But actually he was he really revived administrative practices in the temples under his control. He revived the guru and disciple system by giving empowerment to 74 Simhasanadipadis, gurus who would initiate after him, who would spread all over the country in his zone. And then he re-established worship, where worship had been allowed to drop. So it's a constant act of revival, keeping a parampara strong. It's not just preserving a legacy, it's developing it. Because gravity will also always ensure that buildings crumble. You know how much it costs to maintain the average cathedral in England, of which there are minimum of 47? Average cathedral, 1 year cost, because they're all crumbling, because they were all built in the 1400s, 1500s, like that. The great heyday of building cathedrals. It costs £650,000 just for maintaining. Just for maintaining. And so you have to build up your capacity building exercise by having even more people. And you do that by getting different types of people who all contribute in different ways. And not all of them should be subjected to the rigorous scrutiny that you would put a person under if they were becoming initiated. Some people, they just want to come here, and they want peace and quiet, they want to pray, and they want to go home. And that's fine. They'll contribute in other ways, you see. And some people, we mustn't think that they don't want the ashram life. Those people, we can bring them forward for ashram life, because that is a wonderful thing to do in life. So we have to know exactly what the person can contribute, exactly how I can relate to that person, and develop, grow, build, because as sure as, breakfast time is breakfast time, gravity, rot, corruption, lessening of vitality, that will all happen as the years go by. So you have to start very high, and then it glides. Then someone comes along and pulls it back up. This is the sort of heartbeat of the parampara. Boom, 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 boom. In every generation, it's required that we re-establish things that have been lost. Even God himself says that. I came, I told you everything, and now I have to come again. And I have to re-establish Dharma. So constant process of re-establishing Dharma. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for listening. Sorry to go over time.